Thank you for tuning in to episode 2 of Just Do You. This is an effort to make a difference in my local community and maybe save a life in the process. I know that sounds cheesy, but that is my goal. Honestly, I just want to reach out to the people in my community and try to help you help each other stay safe out there. We're losing a lot of our local kids, and I call them kids. They're not kids, they're grown-ups now, but we're losing a lot of our younger adults to suicide and depression, and many times that comes in the form of overdoses, where these folks are just trying to self-medicate and become addicted to a substance. Well, I'm going to shut up now and just get started on my presentation for you. And I'm doing a little different this week, guys. As you can see, you don't see me. You just see my notes. I'll start out with a really cool quote by John C. Maxwell. It goes along with defining your values. He says, your core values are the deeply held beliefs that authentically describe your soul. And that's what we're talking about this week. We talked a little bit about it last week, and I want to build on what we did last week. So, what exactly are your values? Your strongest values, you're going to find, are things that rarely change about yourself. But you will also find that throughout your life, throughout different cycles of your life, you are going to find that some of your values change because you evolve and you change. Sometimes your values change due to circumstances. Life happens, guys, and sometimes it happens pretty hard and pulls the rug right out from under your feet, right? And then there are other times that your values may have been swayed or changed due to true biological changes that are taking place in your body. I mean, adolescence was one of those times that I'm sure we can all relate to, but there are other times throughout our adult lives that biological changes do take place. People do grow. So keep in mind, your strongest values are rarely ever going to change, but you'll find that some of your other values will change throughout your life. I want you first, before we really get down to it, to go back and look at your notebook from last week. And I want you to read what you wrote throughout the week. I hope you kept that journal. I hope you followed my advice. I'd like for you to respond to those things that you wrote down in that journal. I'd like you to go back in like a different color pen or maybe a pencil or with a highlighter. And I want you to respond to what you wrote. And I want you to do that in writing. Think about, did you find that you noticed the things that you had written about throughout the week? Some of those things that you wrote about that had made you happy in the past, and some items that you might have in your little repertoire of things to do to group yourself back to your own self. Did you make an effort to acknowledge the things that make you happy? And did you make some time for you? Any time for you at all this week? Did you reach out to your core, your group of people? You know, that core group is your core group because they share the same values that you share. I don't know what I just did, but I'm trying here. So, write the date down in your notebook. It's a new day. And I want you to, under today's date, ask yourself the question, what are my top 10 values? And you can see here connected on the Google Docs that I have, if you click this link here, it will take you directly to that core values list. This is a long list. And this is going to take some time, But what I'm going to ask you to do is actually write down, choose and select your top 10 values from this core values list. Alright, so I'm pulling out my notebook, okay? And I'm going to share with you what the heck I'm talking about. I have a document in front of me that has that core values list. And in fact, I will click back to that document so you can look at it while I'm talking about it. This list is longer than the actual list that I was given. And therefore, this list will take you a while to get through it. You see all these terms, all of these values. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to tell you my top 10. The ones that I have circled on my piece of paper in front of me. And I'm just going to do it in alphabetical order because that's the way they were given to me and that's the way I'm kind of giving them to you. So here they are for what that's worth. My 10 core values are acceptance, compassion, effectiveness, empathy. And I put a star beside of empathy. I think maybe because I am a little more empathetic than the average Joe, and that is quite possibly my strongest gift, is being able to have empathy, and it's a really strong value to me. Thought I'd share that. Endurance, I see that circled at one point, but that's an old value. I changed it. Endurance used to be a value that I held high, but it changed. Grace, happiness, harmony, integrity, and stability. All those are on my top 10 list. A couple more of my old ones that I can see that were circled and then erased. Prosperity. Yeah, prosperity used to be a major one of mine. And ambition is another one that I took off my list. My ambition is now more determination. So those two changed out. So what I'm trying to do is give you just an idea of what I'm talking about when I tell you to take a look at this list. Identify top 10 values for your life. It's going to take some time, okay? It's important to do this because it's important to remember that your values are not the same as anybody else's values. It's so simple, but it's one of the hardest things to remember. Your values determine your behavior, guys. And your reaction to the behavior of others is also determined by your values. If they don't live a life that you have respect for, you get what I'm saying? Putting your values on paper helps to define you. And it helps you to understand why you feel and react the way that you do to certain things. It also reminds you that you cannot change other people. The only thing you can do is be an influence on other people simply by existing. You know, we talked about that in my last episode too, how every individual that you encounter influences you in some way. Even if it's just the sheer gravity of their being in your path and needing to move. Every other person influences us in some way. You can't change other people's behaviors, and you can't change other people's values. Only they can do that. But you can influence them. Now that you got your top 10, I want us to really look at those and think, alright, how do I define that? How do I live that value? What does that even mean to me? So, after you've listed those top 10, underneath each of them, I want you to list one way that you live that value in your daily life. Let me get my notebook and I'll tell you what I'm talking about. For example, I'm going to choose empathy. That's the one I talked about earlier. And I wrote down 3 specific ways that I live that value. One is I read and listen to the stories of others. Another way that I show empathy each day is by reaching out to friends, even if it's just a quick text to say, thinking about you, wanted to say, hey, hope things are well. And a third way that I show empathy is I try to listen more than I speak. That's 3 things that I wrote down. I'm just asking you to write one. Now, the more you write, the better directed you're going to be as to why do I do the things that I do, and what are my values that make me do them. So I'm just asking to list one way for each of those 10. But then I also want you to go back and I want you to list a new way, something that you don't normally do. A new way to start living that value in your daily life. How can I incorporate more determination? How can I incorporate better stability? What's one thing that I can do throughout the day that's under that goal that guides me in a better direction? And write that down. This week, I want you to focus on your values. The more focus you put on living up to those values, the better you're going to feel. I want you to make notes this week about times that those values were challenged by others and how you reacted to that. Or times when perhaps your values challenged someone. How did they react to that? Think about your daily exploits. Think about that last trip to Walmart. Yeah, that's a good place to come up with some places for your challenges, your values to be challenged. What I have gathered for all you guys so far, I don't know how many of you saw it on my last episode, and that's why I chose to do this one by screencast. These are the resources that I have gathered for you. You know, you always have access to the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, and here's the phone number for that. There is a really, really great alternative. It's called Therapeutic Alternatives. These guys actually will send someone to you within 2 hours, they say, and assess your situation and help determine what your next step needs to be. We have NC Crisis Services. That is their web address. Pierce Ministries right here in Archdale. I was given their phone number. Gospel Baptist Church here also in Archdale. Pastor Steve Hill's information and the church information is there. Claudia Melton is a service provider. She's also given permission for her number to be shared here. I'll just go through and read the resources instead of... Okay, Archdale Pediatrics, Midge Noble. That is her Facebook page of Empowering Awakened Hearts. Poplar Ridge Friends, Celebrate Recovery, reached out to me and I joined their Facebook page. They have recovery meetings and they have a good Christian-based program. If that's your niche. Archdale Trinity Family Crisis Center, right in the middle of Archdale, y'all. A great resource for us. There's the contact information and the address. If you're in Davidson County, Thomasville Pediatrics, Family Services, there's their phone number. Davidson County Transitional Services is also a good place to seek assistance. And if you're in Guilford County, Family Services of the Piedmont and West Fairfield Baptist Church, Pastor Mark Mosley, their information is there for you. If you want to support me, I'd love for you to share me. My YouTube subscribers doubled after that first week's episode, and I really appreciate that. Especially considering it looked like an old kung fu movie where the words did not match the video whatsoever, but thank you for sticking with me. I'm trying to make this short and sweet. Check out the merchandise on my Teespring store. Guys, I love you. I want you to stay safe. Use these resources if you need them.